Well, hello, and thank you for joining me for another Alex on Tech and ITY TV video interview. I'm joined today by Rudy Kuhn. He's the evangelist at process mining and intelligence company Celonis. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Alex. It's a great pleasure to be here.
It's a great pleasure to talk to you. Now, thank you for taking the time. Rudy, let's start at the beginning. For those who need a refresher, can you please recap, I guess at a high level, what process mining is and why it's now called process intelligence?
Yeah, sure. So I'm in the improvement business all my life. I started as a consultant at IBM, and I was very fortunate in 2009 to meet the godfather of process mining, Professor Dr. Will van der Aalst from the University of Eindhoven.
Mm-hmm.
And he introduced me to this amazing piece of technology. So, if you're a consultant and you try to figure out how processes run, you typically talk to people, you ask them, like, Alex, please tell me, how does your process look like? And you can tell me anything because I don't know the process. And most likely you don't know the process. At least you know what the process was designed, what it should be. But there are so many different variations. There are so many exceptions and everything. So you won't be able to tell me what the process really looks like. But if I want to improve it, I need to know. So process mining, the idea of process mining is quite simple. Because every digital activity, like, creating a purchase order, approving an invoice, paying an invoice, whatever, everything leaves digital footprint behind. So every business process leaves digital footprints behind. Every order, every invoice, every shipment, approval. And that's, what we extract from the data or extract from the system. We read the data. And then from this data only, we reconstruct the processes as they are. And not just one process, but all variations of the same process. You get sometimes a big chaos on the screen. I call it the spaghetti monster. But that's the reality about processes. So you can ask people, why is the process looks like this, instead of asking, how does it look like? And believe me, there's a completely different discussion you will have.
And of course,
So
you've got process mining, but this has
oh
now
yeah,
evolved to process intelligence, which
yeah, that's right. That's right. Um, because organizations, they quickly realized visibility alone isn't enough. And with process intelligence, we go farther. We connect processes across systems. We add business context. We identify root causes. We predict outcomes. And increasingly, we recommend or even trigger actions. So there's a shift from analyzing processes after the fact to actively guiding how work should happen in real time. So, you take the process, you add context, and you basically start to control your process, and nowadays also to teach AI how processes should run. Recently I was invited to a conference of Forrester in Munich 3 weeks ago, and their prediction for 2026, or one of the predictions, is that process intelligence, and they really call it out like this, process intelligence will rescue 30%, not improve, rescue 30% of all the failed AI projects. Not every project is failing, but most of them are failing to deliver real value. And that's where process intelligence comes into the picture as the connecting tissue between the reality of your business, your processes, and your AI aspiration.
Sure. Well, I've got more questions to ask you about this as we go along, but let's actually have a quick look at your background. I mean, you mentioned working with the godfather of process
Yeah.
mining and intelligence, the professor who I've had the pleasure of interviewing on this program. But your background was that you started your own process mining company, which you then sold to UiPath in 2019. So you've been processing processes, as it were, for a long time, with Celonis
Oh, yeah.
clearly a great place for you to be. So what's the short story of why processes intrigued you so much that you started your own company beyond what you learned from the professor?
Well, my career in process improvement started long before process mining existed. So I worked as a consultant for IBM. I was digitizing manual processes, and everyone believed that once something becomes digital, it automatically becomes better, right? And quite the opposite happened. I mean, after we digitized processes, the process was the same. People make the same mistakes, but now faster with IT. And the big challenge really was that processes became invisible. They were digitized. So errors were still there. delays were still there, but nobody understood why. And after I met Will, it was like, I thought, wow, if this really works, it's going to change the way we, or at least I am looking business processes forever. So I started Process Code. It was a consulting company for process mining. We worked with some very premature products from the Netherlands. I met Alex, Basti, and Norton, the founders of Celonis, in 2011. So we became the first implementation partner for Celonis. But, working with them in early days was sometimes quite intense. So we built our own product. We joined forces with a Dutch BI company, put the process mining layer on top of it, and became number 2 in the market overnight. As you can imagine, Celonis didn't like it. So I officially became like the public enemy number 1 for them. And in 2019, I received a call more or less out of the blue from UiPath asking me for a meeting in New York. I was traveling in California at that time. Yeah, so we met, we talked, and we decided that a combination of RPA and process mining would be match made in heaven, basically. That was the idea. UiPath acquired Process Code. So I was with UiPath for a couple of years until I realized that process mining is not the magic one for automation. And also automation is not the solution to every problem. I always say, who wants to automate fraud? If you discover some issues in your process or some errors, then I follow something I call ESSA: eliminate, simplify, standardize, and only then consider automation. And I realized that automation company is not the right place for me because automation is not the solution to every problem. I left, and then my friends from Gartner learned about it. Alex, our CEO, learned about it, and very much to my surprise, he gave me a call and asked me to join Celonis as an evangelist. Given my background, my experience, and I totally love it. It's the perfect place for a guy like me to be. Sorry, it was a bit longer. It wasn't short, but it's a long story.
It's a match made in heaven.
Yeah, kind of.
It's like the hero's journey. You were allies, then you were enemies.
Yeah,
then
yeah.
the proverbial, son came back home, and
yeah. Or you can put it different. You can say, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. It's maybe something to it. Yeah, definitely.
Now, in the second week of January this year, you wrote an article for Diginomica that I'll link to in the article that accompanies this video, titled "Most Enterprises Aren't Ready for AI. What's needed is composability." Now, this is fascinating because in all the talk about AI, I very rarely hear anyone talk about composability. So when you talk about a composable enterprise, what is the definition of that? What does it actually mean in practice, and how different is it from just having a modern tech stack?
Right. Maybe let me start with some thoughts.
Sure.
I also contributed a chapter to a book called The Future Enterprise, which will be published soon by Michael Roseman, Professor Michael Roseman from Queensland. And the question is, what does it take basically to survive the future? I often talk about survive and thrive. So the world is changing faster than ever before. Geopolitical situation, we all know what's going on. And so you need to be ready for that. You need to be ready to adapt, because adaptability, or let's say survival, is linked to evolution. Evolution basically is adaptability. And the most adaptable company is a composable enterprise or a composable company, because it's more than just a modern tech stack. Many companies already have cloud platforms, APIs, great software, but their processes are still trapped inside individual applications, and often inside monolithic systems. And composability means the business capabilities become modular building blocks. So whatever happens, you can replace one function, you can replace one block like Lego, and replace it with another one without breaking the whole. And you can combine them, you can replace them, you can orchestrate them, or adapt without redesigning the whole thing. So in practice, that means that change becomes fast and safe. You can react, you can adapt, and adaptability again is evolution, and evolution is survival. Or it's not just survival; it's actually thriving in a situation where environment where everything is changing. So instead of launching like a 3-year transformation program, every time the market changes, organizations continuously adapt workflows and decisions using these reusable capabilities. So that's what composability is all about. And if you want to do this, you need to understand your processes, and not just once. You need to monitor them. You need to be, on top of your processes and always in control. So process intelligence again feeds this composable enterprises with flexibility, transparency, and the ability to react. That's the whole idea. It's more than just idea, actually. It's something companies need to do if they want more than just survive, if they want to thrive.
So that basically means that inside these monolithic systems, which I guess is still most companies today, having gone through rounds of digital transformation that have, become out of date before the whole program is finished. What's broken inside that these people might not even realize is that it's difficult to turn the company on a dime because they're stuck. They don't have this ability to move parts in and out as required.
Absolutely. Most companies, I think they don't even realize how fragmented they actually are. If you look at the processes, an order might start in CRM, continues in ERP, moves into logistics systems, then finance, customer service. And each system optimizes its own step, but nobody really looks into the end-to-end experience, especially not from the customer side. So employees, they compensate manually. Excel files, I love Excel. Excel files appear, emails become workflows, and people basically become the human middleware. And from the outside, everything looks digital because they are using IT systems, but a process built on emails and checklists and Excel files, that's not a digital process. So inside, it's often coordinated heroics just to keep operations running.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think of the old sneaker net where people would go around passing stuff on USB sticks, and also the whole shadow IT. I mean, here it's the humans are the shadow IT gluing everything together rather than having this system. I mean, one of the things I heard a lot about during a lot of the digital transformation talk in the last decade was that, digital transformation is going to break down all the silos. And then in the last, 6 months, I've been to conferences in Las Vegas talking about AI, SAP and other companies. And they're talking about how AI is going to help break down the silos. And I said, hang on, didn't digital transformation break down the silos? How come we still got silos? But the thing is, we still have silos.
Boy. No, fully agree.
So process intelligence is obviously central to the thesis. You've given us a definition. Let's go a bit deeper. How does this work mechanically? How do you go from an organization that can't see its own workflows to one that has a living digital twin of how it actually operates, which is something that I've heard Celonis talk about quite extensively?
Right. Okay. It's a sort of a journey. So mechanically, it starts with data integration. So there are many different ways how we either access the data or extract the data. Data is the foundation of process intelligence, process mining. If there's no data, there's no process mining, full stop. And with process intelligence, we connect event data across systems and we reconstruct the real workflows, not what was designed, but what actually happened, even if people are not aware of it. As a matter of fact, the first process mining project I ever conducted was back in 2009 for a bank in Germany and for internal audit. Because I don't know if you ever worked with internal audit, but nobody tells internal audit what's really going on. And so what actually happened? Nobody will tell internal audit. So you take the data, you reconstruct the process, and then we are talking. Because you see variance, you see bottlenecks, you see rework loops, you see compliance risks and issues. So that's the first step, data integration. Then analytics add causality. We look into why delays occurred, which decisions create costs, why we have cases bypassing maybe mandatory approval steps, how many cases, what's the total value, who are maybe the suppliers behind these invoices not being processed correctly. And finally, the execution layer, that allows us to intervene. Let's take an example. You see maybe an invoice is incorrectly processed, checked and approved by the same person, the typical segregation of duty violation. It shouldn't happen, but it happens. And people will always find a way to get around in the process or to find some shortcuts. And faster than you or me, process intelligence will register there's something wrong, will notice, and can immediately stop this invoice from being paid, apply payment block in your ERP system, and then trigger someone to recheck and reapprove this invoice. So it's about triggering response. It's about being on top of your processes. Trigger automation, or humans, receive guidance what to do. And more we see AI agents actually that act without defined boundaries. So, and at that point, you effectively have a living twin of your operations. You are connected in real time to your data. You always see what's really going on. You can react. You can trigger people. You can trigger automations. You can notify people. You can trigger bots. So your system really becomes this living digital twin, and you can even simulate what will happen if I change this and that. So you're really in control. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it lets you see how things are working without having to interrogate a whole stack of different people. I mean, you can double check with them. Is this how it's really working? But
absolutely,
that is a
and
viewpoint, like a bird's eye view.
That's an important one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not just a bird's eye view, but it's also, you can then go down deep and see things happening step by step, which is something that you normally otherwise wouldn't have.
Yep, fully agree. You can really ask the right questions to the right people. Why is it like this? And and then you are talking.
Now, in the article, there's a specific sequencing that you advocate: visibility first, then automation, then orchestration, and then AI. So why does that order matter so much? What goes wrong when companies skip straight to the AI layer, as so many seem to be doing, what with all the talk of failed AI projects, which you referenced right at the beginning?
Yeah, that's right. That's a good question, because in general, AI amplifies whatever environment you give to it or you give it. It's and sometimes I say, if you hire the most intelligent person in the world straight from university with no experience, a lot of capabilities, very intelligent, but no idea how your company works, you wouldn't make this person the CEO from day one. And
they're book
let
smart,
him,
right? Not experience smart.
They're intelligent but not smart.
Yeah.
So they need to understand, what's really going on. And if processes are broken or inconsistent, then AI basically scales confusion just faster.
Yeah.
And visibility creates a shared truth. So automation stabilizes repeatable work. That's the first point. You see how your process work. You see, okay, there are some rule-based and repetitive tasks people do. You automate these tasks. And one thing I learned in the past is that there is not such a thing as process automation. You might say, wait a second, but there are so many process automation companies out there. Yes, it depends on your definition of a process. So for me, a process, something like purchase to pay, order to cash, the whole thing end to end. But if you talk to, many of these automation companies, for them, the definition of a process is just activities following each other. So it might be that they consider copying data from an Excel sheet into an SAP form a process. And of course, if you do this like 20, 50 times a day, it makes sense to automate it. But sorry, guys, that's not a process. That's just a task. And orchestration, process orchestration, takes this to the next level. So orchestration really connects these bots, systems, APIs, people, everybody across boundaries. So think about it like, like the conductor in front of an orchestra. No matter who is sitting there, they all the players, they know perfectly well how to play their instruments. But you need someone to orchestrate them. Otherwise, it will not become the masterpiece of a symphony, but just musical noise, like when the orchestra is tuning the instruments.
Yeah.
And only then does AI have something reliable to reason about. Because when you look at it, many AI or many failed AI projects, they didn't fail because models were bad or the technology wasn't there. They failed because organizations didn't understand the processes AI was supposed to improve. And AI was not provided, let's say, the process it should be part of. And that's what needs to happen. You need this connecting layer, this connecting tissue, the foundation of your processes. So you start with transparency, visibility, you move on to automation for single tasks, you start to orchestrate your end-to-end processes, and then you make AI part of it. Because let's face it, like in automation, I said, repeatable and rule-based. Many decisions are repeatable or repeatable and rule-based. And that's where AI shines. So, we can start a discussion about different type of AI, generative AI, decisive AI, and agentic AI. And value is created where AI actually makes decisions or support decisions and acts, not in creating text, pictures, summarizing something. That's good. That's good for your individual efficiency, but it doesn't move the needle for your organization in terms of value.
Now, it's often said that when humans looking at new technology, they sort of overascribe what it will be capable of doing in the next couple of years, but underestimate what it'll be capable of doing in a decade.
Exactly.
And
Overestimate in the short run and underestimate in the long run. Yeah, fully
yeah,
agree.
yeah. I mean, we see that all the time. I mean, there's all this talk about AGI and then super intelligence, and yet you ask the AI, you've got your car, and the car washes 100 meters
Yeah,
away.
yeah. I know.
And
It's
do I
all
walk
around.
there or do I drive there? And a lot of the AI is saying, well, you just walk. And it's like, well, hang on. Well, obviously, how do I take my car there if I'm walking? And the AI, and once you point
Context.
it out, the AI goes, oh, I understand
It's
now. But
it's all about context, context, context. Yeah.
yeah. So a question here is, given the fact that people, you know, think AI can do so much. I mean, you were saying before how people expect AI to understand processes, but it's too early for that. I mean, one day AI will just have a look at your business, you feed it all the data, and it'll just magically, determine what all those processes are. I mean, obviously, it will gain tremendously by talking to humans to get the real story rather than having to guess. But
Yeah.
given we're at this point where we're still not quite there yet, and in fact, getting there could still be years, if not decades away. How do you decide where humans stay in the loop versus where AI takes over? Who's drawing these boundaries? I mean, I guess it's the CEO and the management team, but you must be having some discussions around that as well.
Yeah, of course we do. You know, I mentioned this book, the Future Enterprise, and my contribution is a chapter about autonomous enterprise. But honestly, I hope and I don't think that this will ever become a reality. Let me give you some examples. There's an insurance company in Germany, and they are using AI to process all claims. So something happened, you file a claim, and this AI system is based on all the claims and data from the past. It will look into your claim and it will make a decision today. So is this a real claim? Should we pay? And if AI decides we should pay, they do. No questions asked. Nobody looks into it anymore. Maybe up to a certain amount. But and the chief digital officer, he told me, Rudy, of course we know that maybe 1 or 2% are wrong. We shouldn't have paid them, but who cares? We save so much money, and customers are happy. And on the other side, if AI decide or suggest, no, this looks weird. That doesn't look like a real claim. We shouldn't pay this. Then we say, oh, wait a second. First of all, we trust our customers. We don't think they are cheating. We transfer this case to humans. So they talk to the customer, they talk to some experts, and we really make sure that the decision not to pay this claim is the right one. Because if we are not right, we have a very unhappy customer, bad reputation, and we just can't risk this. So the pattern, what I'm talking about is if we use AI to make decisions and trigger actions, then if it's the expected outcome, we do it. Otherwise, we say, wait a second, let humans look into it. And so for me, I believe in the future, to make this short, it's about managing exceptions. So the standard, the boring, the repetitive work, as I said, repetitive rule-based decisions will be made by AI, and humans will stay where judgment, ethics, ambiguity, or customer trust really matters. Does it
And
make
I mean,
sense?
just it does make sense. And I mean, in this regard, autonomous agents are being empowered to take actions and make decisions.
Mhm.
So for those wondering, how does process intelligence change what's possible in that scenario? Can you really deploy agents safely without that underlying process legibility, which is what Celonis shines a light on?
Honestly, I wouldn't do that. Deploying autonomous agents without process visibility, I think it's quite risky. Agents don't just generate content, not anymore. They decide, they act, they approve, they order, they change data. And without understanding the dependencies across processes, small actions can create large unintended consequences. And again, process intelligence provides guardrails. It defines context, constraints, escalation paths, even. So that's what makes agentic AI enterprise ready rather than experimental. And there's another step. What we currently do, we also do something we call agent mining. So you may wonder, what's that? You just talked about process mining. Now you talk about agent mining. But an agent is just another resource in the process. So we use, again, the same technology to observe and to monitor what agents are doing in the process. So again, you stay in control. And then you can use this data again to analyze the patterns behind it with AI and discover if the AI agents are taking the wrong path. And you can control and you can adjust the process. So it's a loop. But essential and most important is to stay in control, to have transparency. And when it comes to processes, digitally supported business processes, that's what process intelligence is good for.
Now, process mining is obviously transformed in the last couple of years into
Yeah.
process intelligence, and this is obviously aided by AI now becoming agentic AI, with agentic AI needing the information from process intelligence and human oversight to really make sure that you can give these agents this autonomy and you can trust them. So we've got a situation here where traditional enterprise transformation has traditionally been these multi-year programs that are often obsolete before they finish, as I mentioned
Yeah.
before. And you've argued that composability makes transformation continuous rather than episodic. Now, given that this is still so new, I mean, most companies are not doing this. Like, they're discovering Celonis for the first time. They're dabbling with these AI agents more or less for the first time, with many of these projects failing, as we discussed. So what does this continuous transformation look like operationally? How does a company do this without creating chaos?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Of course, probably the journey looks different for each company out there. It has to do, with what they already have, the history, the culture, change management, all of that. But if you look into the traditional transformation, you can clearly see that actually it freezes organizations while redesign happens. And the composable transformation, it changes small parts continuously. It's like, again, like evolution. Evolution does not happen with a big bang. It happens continuously, step by step, little tiny steps until, after some time you end up with having something completely different. So what we do, we have teams monitoring these processes constantly. They adjust workflows maybe weekly instead of every 5 years or just after a long time. Think software DevOps applied to operations. You release improvements incrementally because these, how should I say, these capabilities, they are modular. They change becomes routine rather than disruptive. And that's the point. This continuous improvement. I travel to Japan quite often because Japan is a great market for us. A lot of really great customers, and you heard about Kaizen. So that's this idea of small continuous changes. That's it.
And that also delivers a new level of resilience that companies didn't have before. I mean, I think it's worth noting that, these modular composable systems are containing failures locally instead of letting them cascade, which is probably the way that most companies operate. Because, if all this was standard practice, we wouldn't be talking about this. Everybody would be already doing this, whether through their own process intelligence, efforts, if they even sort of had thought of that. Again, most people haven't thought of this. So just for those out there who are still trying to grasp their mind around this and see these new concepts in a way that really makes sense to them, can you give a concrete example, another example, because you've given a few already, but how this plays out compared to a monolithic setup?
Mm, you know, in a in what you call the monolithic setup, maybe a supplier disruption might stop procurement or finance approvals, production planning, and customer delivery simultaneously. Um, the whole machine comes to a stop. Everything cascades. And in a composable setup, orchestrations reuses workflows and reroutes workflows. So alternative suppliers may be activated automatically. Um, Approvals change dynamically. Customers are informed proactively, and the failure of the failure is contained locally instead of becoming a company-wide crisis. Mm,
It's a bit like the internet. The reason why the internet was set up
yeah,
by
yeah,
DARPA
right.
was so that if one site was blown up, the network could root around and launch the missiles back at Russia, wherever it was. One attack somewhere wouldn't knock out the whole system, and that's kind of
Yeah,
something similar.
yeah. I mean, maybe it's not the perfect example for this resilience, but just to show, that the power of what's possible with the platform. One of our customer, a company called Vinmar in the US, I think they are based in Texas, and they are shipping product or they are shipping goods, like many other companies, and they receive customer orders. And with process mining and process intelligence, we found out that there was a huge delay between getting the order in and shipping the goods. And they wondered why. Why does it take like 7 days? Customers are expecting the delivery much faster. So we looked into it and we realized, oh, wait, because every time we have this customer order, they have to reach out to their carriers, ask for a tender, wait for their carriers to respond, then put everything in an Excel sheet again. Um, compare all of them after they decided who will be the carrier, inform the customer, inform the warehouse, and it was all manual. And it really slowed down the process. So what we did, we created this little orchestration piece. So every time the order comes in, we create an HTML form on our system. The suppliers, or not the supplier, the carrier, sorry, the carriers, they receive a notification, like just an email with a link. They click on it, they come to this website, they enter their tender or their offer, and so we give them like 2 or 4 hours, and after all of them responded, or after the time is passed, an AI system will automatically compare all of that. It will select the right carrier. It will inform the carrier. It will inform the customer. It will inform the warehouse. And within 2 or 4 hours, depending how you set it up, this whole thing is done instead of 7 days. And this is just, again, this continuous improvement and continuous optimization and automation, orchestration of everything, really end to end.
I mean, this is where you hear people say, this is the way we've always done it. This is the way it's always been done. But here you get to actually uncover something that nobody was really taking notice of, and obviously costing the company a huge amount of potential profits. And I mean,
Yeah.
certainly it's impossible to do next day delivery if it's taking you 7 days to even figure out how you can ship the product out. So, I mean, this is this company must have been overjoyed at the results.
It's not usual that the CEO of a company like this, a multi-billion company, joins us in Munich for what we call our Celosphere. That's it's the largest or the premium process mining or process intelligence conference in the world. And he was on stage and he was talking about this. So apparently he was very happy with the outcome. Yes.
Now, looking ahead, if we follow this trajectory,
Mhm.
visible processes, modular capabilities, orchestrated workflows, AI agents operating within understood boundaries,
Yeah.
what does the enterprise look like in 5 years, which is
So
approximately 2030? Are we heading towards organizations that are fundamentally self-optimizing?
I believe that we are moving toward self-steering and self-optimizing operations or organizations. Maybe not in 5 years. Maybe it will take a bit longer, and not everybody will be, on the same level at that time. Um, Again, I don't believe in fully autonomous companies, but in autonomous operations, as I call it.
Mm.
Again, if you look into functions like accounting, accounting is heavily um, determined by law, by the tax law and everything. So probably, again, I'm not an accounting expert, but I think that huge amount or a big percentage of the work in the accounting department can be fully automated. Probably will see like autonomous accounting one day, and only the 5% of special cases, exceptions again, will be managed by some real experts in this area. But enterprises where decisions are continuously informed by operational reality, AI is proposing actions, human supervised strategy, processes adapt dynamically. And for these companies, I really believe like the competitive advantage will not be who has IT, who has AI, sorry, not IT, who has AI, but it will who understands their operations well enough for AI to act safely and and very, very continuously.
Well, I mean, it's very clear, even now we're in the third year of the current AI revolution following the
Yeah.
launch of ChatGPT in November 2022. And as everyone has been saying all this time, despite claims of AGI and all the rest, we're still in the very early stages. I mean, we're still figuring this out. And anyone that thinks, it's all done and dusted and everyone can go home and all the jobs are gone, I mean, they're just wrong. That's
Yeah.
what I think anyway.
There's a book I would really recommend everybody to read. It's called AI 2041 by Kai-Fu Lee. And it's a great book. It's something people, or they call it scientific fiction, because he's an AI guy. I think he was with Google for a long time, and he joined forces with Chen Qiu-Fan, I think is the name. And this guy is a science fiction author. And they created this book. And the thing is, it was written back in 2021. So even before ChatGPT was released.
Yeah.
But I think it's still relevant today, because what they did, they are in this book, you will find 10 visions about the future, about 2041. And each vision focuses on one topic, like autonomous enterprise, autonomous driving, deep fakes, you name it. And so first you read a very, captivating story in the future. And then after the story is over, you get like the scientific explanation why they believe this might become reality in 2041. And it's entertaining, it's educational at the same time. So highly recommended, to read this book or to listen to it, because it really will help you understand what the future might look like one day.
I was flying to the US a couple of months ago, and when I'm on a plane and you got lots of time, sometimes I like to watch The Matrix. And so I
Yeah.
watched this again just recently, and that was 1999. And in that movie, they talk about AI has powered these, robots that have basically fought with humans, and AI fought.
Yeah.
Humans blacked out the sun, tried to kill the AI. And anyway, the short version is that, what seemed so fantastic back in 1999, I mean, it's potentially on the doorstep of that happening by 2041, and it's just fascinating to sort of watch this with new eyes. And I mean, humanity has been worried about the rise of the machines with Terminator and all the rest for decades, if not even longer, with people worried about demons and all the rest. So it's fascinating to see this. What else do we need to know about the composable enterprise, about process intelligence, agentic AI, etc., that we haven't already discussed, so the composable enterprise doesn't become compostable?
Yeah. I think we talked a lot about technology. So basically, the whole interview was about technology, but technology alone doesn't make an enterprise composable. Culture matters, governance matters. If you look, there are some great examples of composable enterprises out there. I know, for example, look into Spotify. So their whole organization is set up in this composable way. Each team is responsible for one function with clear interfaces, and they are extremely flexible. So it's not just technology, culture matters, governance matters, as I said, and leadership must accept transparency. not every company is ready for process mining. It was the same in the past. Sometimes I approach companies and I said, Rudy, this is such a great technology, but if I'm, on my level, if I'm the one who brings in this transparency, I'm not going to survive this. So please go to management, or go to internal audit, because they are interested in transparency and they can, they can do it. I can't. Because process intelligence also removes comfortable assumptions. You believe something and I will prove you wrong because I have the data. And it's a famous quote. Unfortunately, I forgot the guy. And he said, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. So, and if organizations really treat composability as just another IT architecture trend or architecture, they will fail. If they treat it as an operational clarity combined with accountability, it becomes transformative. I think that's a big difference, yeah.
And also from the point of view of the person who was swore that it worked a certain way, and then the process intelligence data would show that it didn't. For some people, it will show that they were right. That actually their instinct was that if things work this way was true. Everyone thought no, you were wrong. The data can prove you right or wrong, and that's a good thing.
Very often, we have the situation that people say, yeah, it's what you show us is not a surprise. We didn't have the numbers. We didn't know actually how often this happened, but we knew it happened. And now we have the proof. And you can't improve what you can't see. And if you can't prove it, some people will simply not listen to you. And with process intelligence, you can do more than just see and prove it. We talked about all the possibilities, but it's a starting point. Transparency. Yeah. If you have if you break your arm, you want to understand where the pain really comes from. And once you understand it, the doctor can make the right decision, you get the right treatment, and the problem hopefully will be fixed.
And of course, with that digital twin aspect, you can start doing what if scenarios without actually changing what's happening in the real world until, the digital twin what if scenarios have shown a likely path. And then you can experiment with a lot more certainty based on what you've seen, as opposed to just merely guessing based on intuition and nothing else.
Yeah.
Well, look, as we get towards the end of the interview, I always like to ask a couple of personal questions. The first of which is to ask if you could please share a memory of your first personal computer.
Oh, my first personal computer. It was actually Commodore C64. You remember these old big things you connected to the television? Software was saved on these tapes, and loading the software sometimes took longer than actually using it.
Playing the game,
especially. But what fascinated me wasn't really the hardware; it was the idea that logic could be translated into behavior. And so I started to design database systems. In the beginning, just to finance my university studies. And for me, it was always this belief that we can use this technology to improve our life. And that's something that fascinates me until today. But it all started with an old Commodore computer.
Well, I like to tell people that technology is your friend, not your Terminator-like enemy. We should, embrace it and work with it, not work against it. And the Commodore 64 was launched at CES in 1982. I actually got my first computer in 1979 when I was 4.5 years old. My father bought me something called the Exody Sorcerer, which had a Z80 chip as opposed to the 6502 chip in the Commodore 64. Ran BASIC and had tapes as well. But there's actually a company who's brought the C64 back to life. They're using an FPGA array, and the original joysticks work, the original cartridges work, the disk drives, the tape drives. It's retro technology brought back to life. So I mean that you could always get one and play with it and relive.
I only got access to this type of technology after 1980 because originally I was born in the Czech Republic during the communism time. And it was only in 1980 when my parents managed to go to Yugoslavia on vacation. And then we managed to escape the Iron Curtain. So I grew up in Germany, arriving there as a refugee, as an immigrant.
Yeah.
and just building my life there. So it took me some time
To get one. But
to get into this technology. It wasn't available in the eastern part of Europe at that time.
well, you caught up very fast, which is
Yeah, I
good to
think so.
see.
Yeah, yeah. I just say it's curiosity. It's a driver all my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, absolutely. You should never lose that
Yep.
curiosity. In fact, Einstein spoke about it as being, the way for imagination to blossom. I forget the exact quote, but I mean, he was very, very much into curiosity. Now, my second last question is to ask if you could please share some of the best advice that you've received in life to help you get where you are today.
Oh, I had some great mentors in my life. So how to summarize it? Probably like, don't optimize for being right. Optimize for learning faster than anyone else. And the most transformation failures come from defending assumptions instead of questioning them.
Yeah.
That's what I learned. And as I already said, curiosity scales much better than certainty.
I was just reading today about how the scientific consensus, peer reviewed, in the
Hmm.
modern era means that you're getting reviewed by a bunch of people who think the same way that you do.
Yeah, of course.
Science is all about discovering new things, overturning assumptions, turning
Yeah.
things on their head, like Galileo with the orbit of the planets and the stars and the Earth. So when you say question assumptions, don't defend them. That is so true.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what is your final message to the viewers, listeners, and the readers?
Final message. Yeah, not to be afraid of AI, because I believe that AI is an incredible opportunity to make our life and our society, our planet a better place. But AI without understanding creates risk. So you need the foundation, you need the connecting layer, especially in business. And if organizations want AI to create value rather than chaos, they need clarity about how work actually happens. So that's why we at Celonis say, there's no enterprise AI without PI, there's no artificial intelligence without process intelligence. And we are totally convinced that, when processes work, everything works. People thrive, value is created, and Monday sucks a little less.
Well, Rudy Kuhn, the lead transformation evangelist at process mining and intelligence company Celonis, I hope your message spreads far and wide. The future of humanity and progress in a much more safer and I guess exponential manner towards success depends on it. So thank you very much for your time, and I do hope we can speak again in the future.
Alex, anytime. It was a great pleasure, being here. And yeah, I'm very much enjoying Australia and New Zealand. It's my first time. Very positive vibes, friendly people all around the place. And now my colleagues are waiting downstairs to take me out for some drinks.
Well, I'm sure you'll enjoy that too. Well, thank you
I
again,
will.
and talk to you next time. Bye bye.
Thank you, Alex. Bye bye.